the Grandparents Paradox, or why you don't really know your grandparents. You just might not really know your grandparents, or why your grandparents were probably nicer to you than your parents. Imagine you find someone you want to spend the rest of your life with. Maybe you already found someone, and now it's time. You both think it's time to maybe get children, to try to get children. Now, it works, and everything works fine. And after all these hopes and fears you had, there it is. Your firstborn child. Now, from this point in time on, you have two roles. These two roles are divided because they are also contrary to each other. The first role is to make this new organic intelligence into a fully grown human person, and simultaneously to try to make this new person become a good person. Now, the first responsibility you have, therefore, is to try to turn this person into a good person. But the second responsibility is something else. It's something that is much more selfish, apart from the fact that getting children is already a pretty selfish act when it comes to the human population in general. The human population in general. You are basically saying, my genes should live longer than I am. Then I will live. Now, the second role is again a selfish role. The second role is the role of establishing a good relationship. Of course, also for the sake of the child itself, but also for the sake of you and your own well-being. Because from the moment on the child is born till it turns 18, you are now the responsible person. You are basically responsible for almost everything this child does, apart from a few things that the government handles. Now, from the moment on your child is born, it begins to grow, and it begins to speak, it begins to run, it begins to go to school, it begins to go to another school, to high school, to university. And then there is this moment where the table turns, where this person, this child, is not a child anymore, where the role of you as the someone who still is trying to make this person into a better person, is trying to turn this person into a better person constantly, is fading away in a way. In most countries, from the legal age of 18, a person is a full-grown adult. Your child is now a full-grown adult. And when it comes to the law, there are not that many differences anymore. Of course, your child is probably still dependent on you. But from the moment on it turns 18, these two roles, the two roles of you trying to educate this person, trying to bring up this person, trying to make this person, to turn this person into a good person, this role diminishes because this person is now a person that is not dependent on you anymore. And this also means the second role, the selfish role you always had, and you now have more and more. The role where you establish a good relationship, not as a parent and a child, but as a person and another person. This role begins to grow. And if you now make a mistake, if you make one major mistake apart from the fact that you might have made already a serious mistake before, maybe not intended, but maybe this person that is your child doesn't want to have to do anything with you anymore. Now, from this moment on, this person turns 18. Everything this person ever thought in regards to you can now be done, basically. So, of course, this doesn't mean that your child is very likely to maybe take your life, but what it is very likely to do is, since it is now not dependent on you anymore, is to turn the things it dreamed of, to turn the things he or she thought about, the child, into practice. And if you failed, because you were responsible for building a good relationship to your child, if you failed, then you have now a child that maybe is less interested in having a good relationship to you. And it probably will take a few years until the child itself takes on more and more responsibility in regards to having a good relationship to the parent, you again. Now, this is the first part of the story. And now the second part of the story is the same thing over and over again. Your child begins to meet people. Your child may meet someone, may meet the one person he, she, the child itself wants to spend the rest of his life with, its life with. And the whole cycle now begins again. But the problem now is that in between you and the child, the future child, your grandchild that is then born, and yourself, in between you and the grandchild, there is now always a person in between those two. And this person is now responsible for this child in regards to the law, but also in regards to everybody else. So now, for your grandchild, you don't have the responsibility anymore to educate this person into a good person, because it's your child's responsibility. But this comes with a catch. This comes with the catch of your child being able to take away not only the child's relationship and the child's presence in your life at any single point in time, but also your grandchild's time and presence in your life at any given point in time. Therefore, the only thing you now can do is to be as nice as possible to both, to your child and to your grandchild. And now, the question is, what happens if you mess up one single time and your child doesn't forgive you, your son, your daughter does not forgive you anymore? Then you messed up maybe for the rest of your life. You probably are not in the age anymore to actually have children yourself again. Therefore, the kin, your family, the only growing part of your family that is accessible to you, might just not be accessible to you anymore if you only mess up once. If you only mess up once, your child, apart from the fact that maybe you didn't have the best relationship with your child to begin with, and it was a rocky base all the time anyway. But if you now mess up one single time, if you, for example, tell the grandchild that its mother, its father, your son, your daughter is not a very good person in whichever regard, or you basically badmouth your own daughter, your own son in front of your grandchild, and your grandchild tells your son, then your son, your daughter, your children, if you have multiple, have the power to take away the complete presence of the rest of your family apart from you and your wife, or your wife and yourself, away from you. And this, I think, is the Grandparents Paradox. You basically, up from the moment of time where you yourself grew into a full-grown adult, didn't experience really the real character of either your parents or your grandparents. And when it comes to the grandparents, because there is an intermediary in between, because let's face it, if you have a son, a daughter, for the first 18 years, if you don't mess up in a way that the government steps in or another third party, you have the responsibility, but you also have the total power over these children. But when it comes to the grandparents, they have zero power, because the power lies in the hands of their children. And this results in the grandparents filtering their behavior in a way that you then, as the grandchild, and here we close basically the circle to the beginning, where you as the grandchild then probably had a very nice experience with your grandparents.